Morning, everyone. Hello, and welcome to this morning's webinar. It's good to have you join us. I hope you're all fit and well and have been having, been very profitable in the markets lately, because they have certainly been extraordinary across all instruments. This morning, obviously, we're going to look at the forex market, but before we start, as usual, can I just draw your attention to the disclaimer that I know you can see on the screen. As you know, trading can be a very risky business, so please don't ever think of using money that you cannot afford to lose. This is a new series. Those of you who come along regularly will know we stopped last week for a few days. We had a few days a break, not from the markets, but we had other things we had to see to. So I know we've got quite a few new people that are joining us today. So very quickly, and it really is going to be very quick, we're going to be looking at the markets through the prism of what David and I call volume price analysis. It's a methodology, it's a technical analysis methodology that uses not just price action, but volume to really establish whether the what you're seeing on the chart is authentic, is it genuine, or is it some kind of trap? But that's just the technical picture, if you like. And to that, we also have to bring in what's happening on the fundamental news and what's happening in related markets, because, as many of you know, a lot of the individual currencies and some currency pairs have a very close relationship to what is happening in other markets. For example, the Aussie yen, it's seen as a proxy for risk. So when market sentiment is not very good, the Aussie yen and the New Zealand yen actually will fall, and vice versa. And it's these relationships between individual currencies and currency pairs that really, once you begin to understand them, will really take your trading to another level. Yes, trading one chart in one time frame is let's be honest, that's what most traders do, and most of us can do it. But if you really want to progress as a trader, you really have to start bringing in all these other factors, if you like, into your, add to your trading knowledge and trading skills. It's primarily the reason why we developed the Forex program that I know some of you are already on, and we'll tell you a little bit about that as we go through the webinar. And it's also the reason why we also developed these very particular indicators for the forex market. As I said, understanding first of all, what individual currencies are doing. Are people buying or selling the British pound, the euro, etc., etc.? But and to break down, if you like, the flows, if you like, into the currency market, into these individual currencies, and then we put them back together and we look at saying, well, okay, they're buying the British pound, or they're not buying it this morning, they're selling the British pound, but where is that selling the strongest? Is it against the dollar? Is it against the Aussie? Is it against the yen? And there'll be reasons for that, partly determined by the session that we're actually trading. We're in London, so the British pound is going to be centre stage, as is the euro. But maybe £1 pair is going to be perhaps more heavily traded during this session than another. I mean, cable comes to mind. The euro pound, for example, because obviously the euro, we're in Europe, and we've got the British pound. It's all these little nuances to do with the forex market that, as I said, once you have the information, the knowledge about it, it really will help you to develop as a trader. Right, now the best way to see things obviously is on the charts, and what the platforms we're going to be using today, we're going to be using NinjaTrader. This is my NinjaTrader here, and as you can see, I've already got cable up, and we've already had quite a strong move in cable already. In fact, cable, the British pound, as I said, has been selling off quite strongly, and there's two reasons for it. First of all, the Brexit. I sometimes feel, those of you who follow my forex page and my analysis around the web will know I'm always saying it's going to be Brexit. It's going to be Brexit, and I feel like the little boy who constantly cried wolf. And there hasn't been you know, yeah, the currency has moved, but not as much as one would expect. Well, Brexit really has had an impact on the British pound, primarily because of deadlines. The deadlines for some kind of negotiation, the divorce deal, if you like, between the UK and the rest of Europe. And yesterday was the announcement in Parliament that as you may know, there was an agreement is it October, David? It was the framework, you know, upon which a deal would be based. There's kind of rowback by the UK. Anyway, it'll all be clarified today. Today's actually more important because there is a bill coming before Parliament. So that's one factor to do with the British pound. The other factor to do with the British pound is, and this is what has come overnight, and unfortunately it's not terribly good news from a vaccine perspective, and that is the vaccine that is being developed in Oxford together with AstraZeneca has had some kind of setback. Because as we can see here, a single one of the patients has become very ill. So there has been a halt to that. And the vaccine market's obviously very keen that you know, a vaccine be developed so that we can all get to back to some kind of normality. But what's also interesting about this particular article is that yes, this obviously has caused a problem for the British pound, and markets have been selling off generally for other reasons as well. But it also has an impact on oil, and oil has been very bearish. We wrote about oil the day before yesterday, already saying that it was looking bearish, and our price target has already been reached on that. But oil, you then look at the currency markets, forex markets, and what is the currency that is very closely connected to oil? Well, certainly on the currencies that most traders trade, and that is the Canadian dollar. And the Canadian dollar, as we can see here on the CSI, the hourly CSI, is very oversold. It's been selling off quite heavily. Partly because of the oil price falling, and it's one of these relationships that you need to know you know, once you start this journey to becoming a successful forex trader. So, looking at the indicators that I mentioned earlier, this is the one where we all start, which is the currency strength indicator. This is one that separates all the individual currencies, and we look at, you know, where the money has been flowing into, and it's actually lovely to see a CSI in this particular state. We don't really want to see all the lines bunching in the middle, because it tells us there have been some strong movements into the individual currencies. We can see here the yen, a strong buying of the yen, reflecting sentiment. Markets have been in a bit of a swoon these last couple of days, so market will be buying safe haven currencies such as the yen. Paradoxically, the yen is also a currency which is sold when the market's sentiment is positive. So it's like the Roman god Janus, it faces two ways in the markets. Swiss franc also having been bought, although that's a bit of a sell-off at the moment. And down at the bottom here, we have a big sell-off. We've had a big sell-off in the Aussie. Clearly, two reasons for the Aussie. First of all, market sentiment, but also there's this ongoing spat between Australia and China. That's at the moment it's a war of words. Journalists being thrown out of, or certainly out of China overnight. So anything to do with China has an impact on the Aussie. So again, one of these relationships, you know, these to do with the currencies, it's the sort of knowledge that you have to acquire, because the price action is fine. We look at price action, we look at the volume, we look at, you know, the structure of the charts, but it's important to have all this in background. Now, the individual currencies are all very overextended. This is the pound, but we have to remember a market can stay overextended an awful lot longer than we can stay solvent. Now, what happens is when the currencies are so overextended, and we can see here the pound yen, which is the weakest of the pound pairs. How do we know? Because on this indicator on the matrix, we have taken the data from the currency strength indicator, and if you like, calculated, well, which of these pairs are the strongest and which are the weakest. The numbers on the side, the values here, are also quite important because they tell us, if you like, the strength, or the strength of the move, if you like, in the pairs at the top and the bottom. What we're also doing with this particular indicator, it's a refinement, and it's come about as a consequence of our development of the indicators for TradeStation, and that is what we have come up with is a means of trying to establish whether, at the moment it's showing 44 as a value. Well, is that minus 44? Is that an average value for this time frame? Is it a high value, or is it, doesn't really mean very much? Because we want to try and establish, is this a strong move or not a strong move? Well, 42 is sort of okay. These numbers have been in triple digits, as it were. When they are in triple digits, well, we know there's been a phenomenal move, but it also tells us that we are probably due what we've kind of called a technical correction, if you like, based on simply the fact that it is so overextended in this particular time frame. That correction may or may not be tradable. But it will be quite a fast and furious correction. And then what we see is, when we have these very high numbers, is to go and look at the charts, see if there's been volatility, look at the momentum, and basically see if it is possible to take a trade, a counter trend trade to what we see on this particular time frame, which is why we use multiple time frames. But getting back to the CSI, we have these overextensions. We've got the London Open now, and now we've got a new bunch of traders coming in. So session crossovers are hugely important, as we always say, and things are setting up very nicely. So we've got the pound at the bottom, we've got the Canadian at the bottom, we've got the New Zealand rising. Maybe there's a bit of some positivity in the markets. I believe the futures for the Nasdaq is up slightly. We've got the Japanese yen still at the top and rising, but this overextension on the hour tells us that there will certainly be the opportunity for some correction trades, maybe even some reversal trades in the faster time frames. And finally, over here we have the currency array, which looks at the strength of the trend, and in fact the strength of the trend has pretty much come up with the pound yen. And this one does have a signaling service, if you like, on the indicators, where it tells us it is overbought or oversold. So giving us a little bit more confidence that possibly there may be a trading opportunity, as I said, in the faster time frames. So that's a quick run through of where we are at in terms of flows into the individual currencies. And here we are with I've just got cable here. I've got what have I got here? I've got the 3 minute, the 5 minute, I've got a Renko cable, and I've got a 10 minute cable with our Camarilla indicator on it as well, because a very important part of volume price analysis is support and resistance. And I've mentioned this before, we have to have a way of defining, of showing, illustrating on the chart those key levels, if you like. We have a number of indicators that we've developed, some based on price, some based on price and volume, and the Camarilla is one which is based on price, but it also is a hierarchical one. Some of these levels are more important than others, and the key thing with the Camarilla indicator is this: the way it is calculated is on all the time frames up to but not including the hour, They are updated on a 24-hour basis. Once you go to the hourly chart, I must make sure I've got enough days to load on here. Hopefully it'll come up in a minute. It won't. The values on the chart are valid for 1 week. What happened with cable? In fact, let's go to MT4. For some reason, that's not coming up. MT5, sorry. Right. What happens? Right. These are the values for the price action at the moment. We've obviously, this, as we can see here, we've had a period of congestion overnight, and we've had a break lower on the volatility. Why? Because we've got the volatility trigger, a candle triggered with this indicator that we've developed here. It's when the price action is outside of the average true range. We had the first one here. What will happen is you have a retrace to within the spread of the candle, and it will either congest or it will reverse or continue in the direction. And in fact, it did go low. We had a second volatility trigger, a retrace into the spread of the candle, but notice all along the significant levels of the Camarilla indicator. The second one was validated, and then it went straight back to the S3. Now the S3 is actually quite interesting. We don't talk about the S3 very much. We talk about the S4, because if it hits the S4 and it goes through the S4, then we are looking at a potential breakaway. But the S3 is also important because it's the level where if it is going to reverse, that is when it is likely to reverse, and it is looking for a reversal potentially right back to the R3. So it's quite a big, potential reversal. And the way you use it is, obviously you have the CSI, which will help you to see whether you are going to get a reversal. You're going to get confirmation from the CSI as well. And of course the price action and the volume itself. What is happening here? We've got obviously it's the London Open, so all sorts of things happen at the London Open. We have some very narrow spread candles. We've got a ton of volume going in, and the price isn't going anywhere at the moment. So this move lower, if you like, that came off the S1, which looked like a great move, has come to a pause. Ton of volume coming in, potentially looking for a reversal. And given what has happened with cable, and people have been selling it heavily, this is what I mean by a technical reversal. The sentiment towards the British pound may still be negative overall, but there are going to be these opportunities for taking a trade maybe which is counter to that sentiment. And if this only applies, obviously, if you are an intraday, not even a scalper, but certainly if you're on the faster timeframes. And if you don't have the kind of information, you don't know what you're looking at in terms of price action, volume, the structure of the chart, and the support and resistance, it is going to be tricky for you. Now, to give you what we see on the Renko chart for cable is, obviously this is the move lower. We've had a period of congestion, and this is the break lower that we've had on those 3 candles on the 10-minute chart. We've got some support coming in here. All our support and resistance indicators are dynamic, and in other words, once when they're on the chart and they're painted, they will change depending on the price action. They're constantly recalculating and refreshing. The Camarilla doesn't. Once it's on there, and that's it. And that is the value that you will look at for price objective, price targets, stop placement. You can use it in a number of different ways, and we can see here that there is actually a pause, and we look at the Camarilla and it's clear it's at the S3. As it's London, let's wait a little bit. Let's see what's actually going to happen, because there's always all sorts of tricks going on with London. Now, I said about the hourly chart. If we look at the hourly chart here for cable, I said the values on the hourly chart up to and including the day, these values are what we call the weekly values. Now, when you have some price action, which is, like we had over the last couple of days for the British pound, and all these levels get chewed out, if you like, and you think, well, what do I look at? My weekly values have gone. You then can revert back to the daily values because they are refreshed every 24 hours, or you could go the other way and look at the weekly chart, because those are valid for until the end of the month. So not only do you have daily values, you've got weekly values, you've got monthly values, and that's how you play them in terms of support and resistance. Right, it all seems to have come to a bit of a pause point for the British pound. Let's have a look. Let's move that down to the 3-minute chart. Where are we? Yes, and we can see why. We're actually at the volume point of control. As I said, this is yet another indicator we've developed, which, if you like, gives us that place on the chart where, if you like, it's fair. It's what's called fair value in terms of in market profile parlance. In other words, there is no firm bias. Either the price action has come to a pause and we are going to get a congestion, and that is what we are waiting for. And we're waiting for a direction. Is it going to go? Is it going to go reverse, or is it going to carry on lower? What I'm also going to talk about a little bit more later is how, given we've had this fantastic piece of, this price action on cable, and maybe you've missed it, maybe you've not been at your trading screen, maybe for whatever reason, you've not been focused on it, you've looked at something else, you think, but you still think, I think this has got further to run, it's going to run, it's going to carry on lower. Well, how do you join an existing trend, particularly one which is, as strong as cable is at the moment? And that's what we'll talk about after we've come back to me from David. So I'm just going to pass over to David. I'm going to keep an eye on cable. The other currency in focus, which has kind of taken a bit of a back seat, but is really important because of is the euro, because we have the ECB tomorrow, and I'll talk about the euro when you come back to me. If you've got any questions, just drop them into the chat box. Happy to answer them, and that's it. Either in the chat box or we'll answer them on air. I'll just pass over to David.